In the land acknowledgement, we acknowledge that we are in the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. And rules for the council chambers. Rules of decorum at council meetings. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disrupts, disturbs, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councilors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, we have one disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Jubenville on item 20A, the advertising in municipal arenas. And I'll pass it over to you for the artist feature.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Just before I pass over to Councillor Hall for an introduction, we've got some guests joining us today. As part of our tribute at Council, we're celebrating arts and culture, and we want to make sure we cover all avenues of it, and certainly another fantastic piece of arts and culture in Chatham-Kent is our guests, and Aaron Hall, I'll pass it to you, or Councillor Hall, I'll pass it to you to introduce them.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caniff. Very happy to introduce the group here that just performed our national anthem, and they're going to be performing a couple of songs in a couple minutes. So introducing to the Wallaceburg Brass Quintet, started 5 years ago as an ensemble composed of members of the Wallaceburg Concert Band. Dave Babbitt, Chris Mann, Megan Lung, Joni Yazbek, and Dan White have been providing free concerts across Chatham-Kent and into Sarnia-Lambton since 2018, performing at seniors' residence, schools, Glasstoberfest, churches, a recent Heroes event, as well as free community concerts. Their goal is to share the joy of music with the community. They also create YouTube videos that highlight the beauty of Wallaceburg while also being particularly foolish. Those must be Dan and Dave's words, I think. So without further ado, I'll hand it back to the Wallaceburg Brass Quintet, who will be performing a couple of numbers.
I'll just, Mr. Dubin, I'll pass it over to you and just let them get out of the middle there, and then I'll pass it over to you. There's nothing on.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it gives me, can you hear me okay? Yeah? It gives me tremendous pleasure today to talk a little bit about Dr. April Redyke. So I know April doesn't like being recognized. We did make her cut the cake, so she's going to have to listen to this too. But hey, this is going to be April's final council meeting. I don't know if she counted how many council meetings she has been to. We didn't, but it's been many council meetings that that April has attended. She's been in health and social services for 39 years, 27 years with our organization. She's led us through. I was sort of going through the list, but uploads, downloads, and a lot of things in between in terms of our relationship with the province. If you've ever received an email from April, you can tell by all the abbreviations after her name that she has always continued to pursue education and sort of self-growth and self-improvement. She's built a reputation in the municipality, but also regionally, and I would say even provincially, as an excellent leader and an incredible source of knowledge. There's not a lot of people, in April's space that haven't come across her and aren't impressed by her. Throughout her career, she's provided extraordinary leadership and guidance through some very difficult times. I haven't been here very long, but I know that she was largely responsible for navigating us through the pandemic because so many of the departments in her portfolio were significantly impacted by the pandemic. She's built a really strong team, and you guys as councillors get to see the team that April has built, and I know that team will continue to provide excellent service to the people of Chatham-Kent long after April has left. If you do go to Disney, you might run into her, literally. She is often seen running in Disney in Florida, and I know she'll continue to do that. That's one of her favorite hobbies, and hopefully with retirement she can now run twice a day instead of every day, which is what she manages to do now, even during budget. So, one of my first opportunities to actually see April at work was one of our first Wheatley explosion files. Now, Wheatley explosion meetings on that file. Obviously, it was, a long time after the explosion, I would say at least a year and a half after the explosion. And you can always count on April to sort of remind everybody of the people involved. That despite everything that was going on, despite all the studies, despite some of the economic challenges, it really always came down to the people. And so you can count on April to talk about care and comfort. That was always paramount in what she does. And I think it rubbed off on everybody. And she always brought it back to that, which was really, really heartwarming and something that is easy to forget. But April was always the one who would bring us back to that. It's been my honor and privilege to have worked with you, April. I think, you have a reputation right across the province. You're one of the most dedicated and professional civil servants I've ever worked with, and it's been my honor in the short time I've worked with you. And just on behalf of the senior staff, we wanted to have a chance to bid you farewell and thank you for everything. So.
So, April, just before you pass the mic to you, not many people get a standing ovation and people that we dressed up for you at the same time here. So just briefly from council perspective, I share everything what Michael just shared, but just I know as a councillor, I've known you for 9 years now, or 10 years in council, and I know every time you come up to that microphone, everybody's glued to what you say, because you command a lot of respect on what you've done over that period of time, and each and every time. Your knowledge, your expertise, it has been a privilege and honor for myself, and I'll speak for all of council, because I know if I went to each and every one, they'd be saying the exact same thing. So I want to thank you so much for your service to the municipality, what you've done for Chatham-Kent. Chatham-Kent is a better place because of everything you've done over the last 27 years of your career, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Michael, for those words. It is with mixed emotions when you retire and you finally pick that time. So while 27 of my years have been spent here with Chatham-Kent, just under 40 years really in health and human services. And I even forgot the stint I spent in long-term care prior to actually working in public health. So Chatham-Kent is a great place. It is a great place to work. We have wonderful staff. We have wonderful community partners. And I will never let it pass the opportunity to say, as you sit around in this horseshoe as the leaders of this community, never forget that people matter. The people that we serve, the people that we work with, the people that we have good times and bad times with. That is what makes Chatham-Kent tick. And I am honored and proud to have been part of that for many, many years. So thank you.
We'll go to Integrity Commissioner now.
We have the introduction of our new Integrity Commissioner Council, and I will pass it over for the introduction to Kathy Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are pleased to introduce Suzanne Craig of SC Consulting as Chatham-Kent's newly appointed Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator. Suzanne was appointed by Council as the Integrity Commissioner for a 2-year period from November 26, 2023 to November 26, 2025. Ms. Craig is a professional consultant who has served as the Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, lobbyist registrar, and provided general ethics and governance training to over 30 municipal organizations since 2008. Additionally, she has extensive experience conducting investigations, providing education sessions, and assisting in policy development with respect to municipal codes of conduct, workplace harassment and discrimination, closed meetings, and human rights. Ms. Craig joins us this evening to make introductions to Council and also to introduce herself to our community. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Craig.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Kenneth, and members of Council, and members of staff, and any public who are listening. I say good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's my honor to serve as your Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator. I'm just going to give a very brief presentation this evening. I look forward to meeting each member of Council in the new year so that we can have a one-on-one discussion on some of the issues that relate to my office and my mandate and any questions that they may have. Next slide, please. So very briefly, the duties of an Integrity Commissioner. I'm just going to see if Judy, thank you so much. The duties of an Integrity Commissioner. So I look at the Code of Conduct as an integrity blueprint. I don't need to, nor is my role to tell members of Council how to act with integrity. My default is that members of Council act with integrity. Acting with integrity for an individual member of Council, in my view, means that members understand and accept and choose to act in their official capacity in accordance with the rules of the Code, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and other policies and procedures of the municipality. The Code of Conduct belongs to members of Council, which means that it enshrines Council's values. It's not the Integrity Commissioner's Code. It belongs to Council. Yes, I apply and I interpret the rules. The Municipal Act reg does say that each code must have rules on gifts and benefits, confidentiality, respect for staff. However, the content should reflect Council. It's a living document. It can change over time. If legislation changes, if there's a code complaint, if there are best practices that should be included, it is a document that reflects the commitment the Council makes to its citizenry. So what do I do as an Integrity Commissioner? Well, I have statutory duties. I arrange for the drafting, and if there already is a code, I look at updating the Code of Conduct. I work with the municipal clerk in that regard. I provide advice and recommendation to members of Council on their roles under the Code, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and any of the intersecting policies of the municipality that relate to their behavior. But I see my core role as being available and working to clarify the rules of the Code and the MCIA, not only for members of Council, but also for members of staff and the public who want to understand how to hold their members of Council accountable. Complaint investigations are what most people think about when they think about an Integrity Commissioner, and it can be a very pivotal moment for the Integrity Commissioner, for your municipality, for the parties, and sometimes very contentious and often litigious. It mirrors a legal exercise, but this is not the intent of the legislation. As your Integrity Commissioner, I look at an investigation as a course correct. I look at the investigation as a way to identify how to look at facts fairly, objectively, and find recommendations and sanctions to correct the course of action of a member of Council. Next slide, please. The rules of the code are not in place to prevent members of council from carrying out their objectives for which they were elected to office. However, a member of council is elected by the people and does not serve a particular group or a particular interest, but becomes one member of the governing body. The code of conduct is not in place to silence political speech. Voicing disagreement of the direction of a colleague is deemed to be political speech, as long as the member refrains from making disparaging comments about other members, processes, members of staff, or members of the public. Using the spoken word to create political pressure on an elected official or council to adopt a particular viewpoint is the essence of political advocacy and debate. As noted by one integrity commissioner in 2020, trying to motivate people to support one's viewpoint or trying to motivate people to oppose a contrary viewpoint is part of the democratic process. It's the words that one uses and focuses on by focusing on issues and not personalities that matter. To be very clear, as Integrity Commissioner, I do not entertain vexatious complaints by the public or by members of council. There is a protocol with which I identify the grounds for a complaint, and if there are none, I will not investigate. However, if it is a bona fide complaint, I do vigorously investigate, I make findings, and I recommend sanctions to council. Next slide, please. Individual members of council carry out your activities in a way that foster and enhance respect for government. Each of you has opinions and preferences, but because you represent the municipality collectively, the code rules guide members to not participate in activities that grant or appear to grant any special consideration, treatment, or advantage to an individual which is not available to every individual in the municipality. Next slide, please. The municipal administration, your staff, the individuals that you hold dear who provide you advice. Section 227 of the Municipal Act sets out that the role of the municipal administration is to implement your decisions and establish administrative practices, to undertake research and provide advice to council, to carry out other duties as required by the Municipal Act and other acts assigned by the municipality. And looking at the recommendations of Justice Morocco of the Collingwood Inquiry, we're reminded that your staff give its best advice to you based on the merits of the questions before them. And without respecting staff's independence and professional abilities and designations, a council risks having the relationship between staff and council become politicized. Next slide, please. I'm also your closed meeting investigator. As you know, under the Municipal Act, the default for meetings is that they take place in open session, except in limited and prescribed circumstances. That is, when receiving legal advice, discussing sale of property, personal information about an identifiable individual, and the like, which are set out in Section 239 of the Municipal Act. A meeting of council is a council meeting, a special council meeting, a committee of the whole, where there's a quorum of members of council present and they are discussing a matter that materially advances the business and decision-making of council. Next slide, please. Conflicts of interest. As your integrity commissioner, I will say that I endeavor to look at all of the facts of the situation before giving advice to any member of council or a local board. Sometimes a member of council may be at a meeting, has not looked at the agenda, and may need advice right away. I try to be available to all members of council, especially when there is a council meeting, to ensure that I am able to provide advice to a member of council on whether or not they have a pecuniary interest. In addition, a member has to know that there are exceptions under the MCIA, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, where even in the presence of a pecuniary interest, a member may rely on the exceptions to allow them to continue to participate and vote without running afoul of the MCIA. The most notable are when a member of council has a pecuniary interest that is in common with electors generally. And sometimes people mix this up and think that it could be anything, but we look at the kind of pecuniary interest, for example, property taxes, and all members may have in common with electors generally that type of pecuniary interest. But we also look at the degree. So even though a member of council may have that kind of pecuniary interest, they may have a larger degree of that interest. They may own more property, and hence their interest is no longer in common with electors generally, and therefore they are disqualified from participating and voting. There are also common law rules, which I won't get into in detail this evening, but they do apply to non-pecuniary interests, which also disqualify members of council from participating in council meetings and voting and influencing decisions. Generally, those are prejudgment or closed mind rules, where an individual is seen to have had an entrenched position on a matter before council, and for this reason there is the perception that they are unable to objectively apply the rules in the best interest of the public. Next slide, please. I will be meeting, I hope, in the new year with each member of council one-on-one to be able to discuss my role as Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator, the code rules, if there is need for a change, issues of note, your ideas on the code, and how to make the code not a weapon of disagreement against your colleagues, but rather an instrument that serves as accountability and the furtherance of transparency for the work that you do. I look forward to meeting you, Mr. Mayor, and all members of council. I look forward to coming to your municipality and assisting you in the good work that you do. I will take any questions, but knowing that you have a lot to do, I will say that I'll be meeting you one-on-one, so if you have detailed questions, I look forward to answering those when we meet. Between tonight and when we do meet in the new year, if there are any questions about code application or Municipal Conflict of Interest Act rules, I encourage you to contact me at the contact information on the slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. We don't see any questions here. You did a great job of describing it, but I know we're all looking forward to meeting you one-on-one early in the new year.
And I bid you good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to planning services.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The process to be followed for each application will be as follows. One, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. Two, the mayor will ask if there's anyone present other than the applicant and or their agent with an interest in the application, and to indicate so by raising their hand. Three, the clerk will advise if anyone is present virtually wishing to speak to the application or if written or video submissions have been received. Four, if someone other than the applicant or the applicant's agent indicates an interest in the item, there will be a presentation by administration. 5, individuals with an interest in the application other than the applicant will be asked to proceed to the podium, provide their name and address, and address council. 6, the applicant will be asked if they wish to proceed to the podium and address council. 7, administration will be asked if they have any comments based on any discussion that may have occurred. And 8, council will be asked what action it wishes to take regarding the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal decision in council in respect to the proposed applications does not make oral or written submissions to the municipal clerk before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or have made an oral or written submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of decision must submit a written request to municipal clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. 13A, application for consent 2518906 Ontario Inc., 5 Wedgwood Avenue and 410 Park Ave West, Community of Chatham City. There are no conflict of interest and no deputations have been received virtually.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in this application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Finn and Councillor Allen, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to make that motion.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 13B, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Ronald and Sandra Fish, 22761 Kentbridge Road, Community of Howard, East Kent. There is no conflict of interest and no deputations have been received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Pincinel and Councillor Wright, can I get you to move this, please?
Thank you, Worship. Happy to move that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Just waiting for one more. Oh, thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0. Moving on to 13C, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Terry and Mary Lee Rabideau, 8336 Wren Line, Community of Dover, North Kent. There are no conflict of interest and no deputations have been received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant or the agent with an interest in this application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Juvenville and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move this, please?
I will move this.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0. 13D, application for zoning bylaw amendment. Power Serve Capital Holdings, Inc., 23588 Industrial Road, Community of Camden, East Kent. There is no conflict of interest and no deputations have been received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in this application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Wright and Councillor Pinson, I'll get you to move this, please.
I'll move that, Mayor. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0. And the last planning application, 13E, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Hensar Corporation, 125 McNaughton Ave West, Community of Chatham City. There is no conflict of interest. I have one deputation, Tom Story, and a second one, which is the applicant, Henry Retz.
Administration, please give us a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The municipality has received an application for zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 125 McNaughton Avenue West in the community of Chatham. The subject lands are approximately 17,400 square feet in area and currently contain a single detached dwelling. These lands are designated residential in the Chatham-Kent official plan and are currently zoned residential medium density second. The zoning bylaw amendment received proposes to rezone the subject property to a site-specific medium-density zone, which would permit a single-story multi-unit residential building containing up to 14 units and associated off-street parking. Conceptual plan of the proposed development is shown on the screen now. This is provided as part of the application by the applicant. In terms of Chatham-Kent's overall housing policies, it is an objective to provide for a range of housing types, sizes, and tenures to meet the ever-changing needs of the housing market in our community. This proposal has the potential to offer accessible, smaller, ground floor units to people who are looking for that type of housing opportunity in Chatham. In terms of proposed zoning regulations for this proposal, of note, it is proposed that an interior side yard of 3.05 meters or 10 feet is proposed on the east and west sides of the property, maximum lot coverage of 42% coverage, maximum density of 14 dwelling units, maximum building height of 4.5 meters, which would be conducive to limiting this building to 1 story and requiring 1 parking space per unit, inclusive of an accessible space. And another change to the zoning bylaw, which is different from the typical regulations of a residential zone, is to permit the parking in the front yard. The main reason for that is the property is quite narrow, and citing a building as well as a 2-way driveway beside the property would limit the development potential of the site in general. As there are deputations and probably comments from the applicant, I will take questions now, but also after those speakers have had a chance to address council. It is recommended that council approve zoning bylaw amendment application D14C3023H in the community of Chatham to change the zoning of the subject property to residential medium density second, exception 1672, to permit a multiple dwelling as an additional permitted use, subject to the noted zoning regulations, and the implementing zoning bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions of administration regarding this report? Seeing none, we'll go to...
Okay, we have Tom Story here as a deputation. Please come forward, Mr. Story. I'll remind all speakers this evening that deputations are 5 minutes and the timer will be on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. As Judy said, my name is Tom Story. I'm here both as a member and representing the Oak Grove Housing Association. I've made 3 previous submissions on this project, 1 to council, 2 to Ryan. And we have a fairly long list of concerns, one of which have not been addressed. I forwarded a proposed zoning bylaw to all of council. I hope you had a chance to see it. And this bylaw either addresses some of our issues or sets a process in place through the use of the H holding symbol to provide an opportunity for input. In his report on page 2, Ryan listed the main items we have raised in our interactions to date. First, he noted that the neighbors summarized their outstanding concerns as follows. There was no justification regarding substantial reduction in zoning. I won't go through those in any details. I will note that the minimum lot area proposed is 119 square meters, whereas 230 is required. Minimum lot frontage, 18 meters is proposed, whereas 26 meters is required. Minimum interior side yard is proposed to have little over 3 meters, whereas almost 5 meters is required. He mentioned the parking in his report being for 1 space per unit. We've had projects before you where we've proposed that as well. I don't have any comment on that. Building height was the one item that we were concerned about. Three stories was proposed, and now one story, so we're at least in agreement with that. The project is not in conformity with the official plan in several ways, particularly intensification development standards, and therefore is not in conformity with the provincial policy statement either. In particular, in the residential policies for high density, a requirement for a high level of landscaping, and also the screening of the parking lot. If you can recall the sketch that was put up here and was also in the report, there's no sign of landscaping, certainly not a high level. And I don't know how you would screen the parking lot that goes from one side of the lot to the other. Also, the OP goes on to say if proposed development is compatible, or the proposed development should be compatible with existing development standards and a physical character of the adjacent properties and surrounding area. Specifically, intensification proposals, what this is, should respect and reinforce the existing physical characteristics of buildings, streetscapes, and open space areas within an existing neighborhood, including heights, massing, and scale of proposed buildings. I did a review of the neighborhood, the surrounding area, and in fact includes those residential properties fronting on the north side of McNaughton between Sandy Street and Galbraith. The density of this area is 54.3 units per hectare compared to 87.5 units at the subject site. And I have to ask, how can a new project with a density 61% higher density of the existing neighborhood not offend this policy? Since my time is running out, in the zoning bylaw that I proposed, we've changed the number of units, which I had originally proposed, from 9 to 10. We're requesting the H holding symbol be applied until we can see what comes out of the site plan. With regard to the traffic impact study, we note that the McNaughton is an arterial road where the OP says it should be 26 to 35 meters, but it's only 20 meters. Also, there are 269 dwelling units within this area, and there are 13 accesses, 13, onto McNaughton. As someone who tries to enter McNaughton on a regular basis, I have concerns. Also, the stormwater concerns that we have and we've mentioned, the Walter Feedy engineering report raises some questions on that we'd like to see answered. As I mentioned in my email, we recently, and council was informed, I recently negotiated a successful appeal at the Endwell project.
That's time, Mr. Story. Council did receive your email. Thank you.
Council, do you have any clarifying questions you wish to ask the presenter? Councilor Story?
I'd just like to note I did speak to the Integrity Commissioner about a conflict on this issue, and she advised I did not have one because it was a larger community issue, just to make it clear for the record. Thank you.
No other questions? Okay.
I understand the applicant is also here, Henry Retz, who would like to speak.
Mr. Mayor, member of council, my name's Henry Rex, and I want to thank you for letting me the opportunity to explain this application to you. This is an application to rezone 125 McNaughton Avenue West in Chatham to permit a 14-unit apartment dwelling. Now, it's going to be unique as each one of the units will be ground accessible. It's a ground floor units, and it can be made accessible for seniors as well as people with disabilities. Now, McNaughton Avenue, as you may know, is a major east-west collector road running right from Prince Albert Side Road on the east all the way to the Bear Line on the west. It has a 4-lane section, and our property at 125 McNaughton Avenue West is right in the middle of that 4-lane section. Our site at 125 McNaughton Avenue is somewhat anomaly for its location. The current 5-bedroom single-family home on about 0.4 acres is from a bygone area of homes on large properties in the middle of the city. The property at McNaughton Avenue has 2 large apartment dwellings, over 100 units to the east, and additional commercial activity to St. Clair Street. Going to the west is the Oak Grove development, an 18-unit townhouse development, which we built about 23 years ago. Incidentally, I've owned this property here about 20 years as well. And then across the street, as the city administrator already told you, that it's Emmanuel Baptist Church and other high-density housing all on the street over there. This is an area that certainly is a high-density area. So it's also ready for high density with popular retail and food locations within walking distance for shopping and for jobs, both at Sandy Street as well as at St. Clair Street. These are their established bus route on McNaughton Avenue, as well as maintained sidewalks on both sides of McNaughton Avenue. And it's a very convenient location, especially for those without a car. Our proposal is to build a 14-unit, single-story building that will include 4 2-bedroom units and 10 one-bedroom units, also all with grade access, HVAC, and parking. Our units will be ideal for seniors, single mothers, people with disabilities, and students in Chatham-Kent. And there's a lack of one-bedroom units that have a reasonable rent and close to amenities. Our 14-unit building will help meet a genuine need in our community, and if approved, this could be a successful model that could be used elsewhere in the city of Chatham. Now, incidentally, the zoning of this property is already RM2. That already allows double duplex dwelling of fourplexes, row houses, dwelling, etc. And exactly, it would permit 13.4 units. I'm asking for 14 units. That's hardly an increase. Immediately to the east, is a 27-unit building that the city is putting up, and the density there is in the order of 150 units per hectare. We're looking at like 83 units per net hectare. So I really pointed out that the zoning already allows this. In addition to that, your planning department, amongst other things, that says that the application does not raise any issues for provincial interest. It generally meets the official plan, and et cetera, et cetera. It is appropriate to consider, and it's within the urban area. This is not a problem at all. And the parking can be accommodated, the traffic can be accommodated, most of the stuff can be accommodated by the site plan. It's a medium density area. It allows up to 75 units per net hectare, whereas next door it's 150 units per hectare, right immediately next door. So overall, the proposal is suitable for the site, is consistent with the overall development policies of the official plan. It has less density than is permitted, and in the conclusion, the planning department said the proposed zoning bylaw amendment has been reviewed in the context of provincial policy statement, the Chatham-Kent official plan, and zoning bylaw, and will be in full conformity if approved. Therefore, the application is being recommended for approval, and I kindly ask for your approval. Thank you.
Any councillors have questions of the presenter? Seeing none, administration, do you have any other comments based on the discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing specific, but I'm available for questions.
Councillor B. McGregor?
I'll move the recommendations.
Councillor Crew?
I'll second them.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Bondi? Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 15-2. Moving on to our regular council agenda, we have deputations. We have 2 deputations this evening, and I just need to open up my screen here. So the first deputation is on item 19B, motion of Councillor Story regarding declaring intimate partner violence an epidemic. We have Michelle Shire from outgoing Executive Director, Chatham-Kent Sexual Assault Crisis Center, and on deck is the Chatham-Kent Coordinating Committee to End Violence Against Women. Welcome. And again, I'll remind the deputations they have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, just little things in the way. Okay. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. When I started working at the Chatham-Kent Sexual Assault Crisis Center in 1990, 1 woman was killed in Canada every single week by a man who had purported to love her. About half were in Ontario. That number has grown to 1 woman killed by intimate partner violence every 6 days. Arlene May knew she was going to die. Shortly before she did, Arlene had told her hairdresser that he was going to kill her. These are the jury recommendations from the Arlene May inquest. Her murder was preventable. Jillian Hadley was running along the sidewalk trying to get away, her baby in her arms, when the killer caught her. Her neighbors tried to help, and thankfully she was able to pass her baby to a neighbor before he dragged her back into the house and killed her. These are the recommendations from the Jillian Hadley inquest. Her murder was preventable. Teresa Vince did not experience domestic or intimate partner violence. Her workplace murder was the direct result of sexual harassment she had suffered on the job. But the recommendations from the inquest are relevant because the killer, her boss, wanted Teresa to be with him. We heard repeatedly throughout the inquest that he was obsessed with Teresa and that she wanted nothing to do with him. These are the jury recommendations from the Teresa Vince inquest. Her murder was preventable. Lori DuPont was killed on the job by a physician with whom she had worked and with whom she had previously ended an intimate relationship. Lori had suffered workplace bullying, sexual harassment, and violence by him while on the job. They weren't even supposed to be on the same shift, but on a day with reduced staff, he was able to find a hiding spot in Lori's work area. And when she was passing by that hiding place, he took her by surprise and he killed her. These are the recommendations from the Lori DuPont inquest. I believe that you already have or will have information about the femicides of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzik, and Natalie Warmerdam. These are the jury recommendations from the CKW inquest, which is what the inquest is known as because of their last names. Their murders were preventable. There was no inquest into the femicide of Valerie Guttridge, the sister of a former Chatham-Kent police officer, or Angela Harkley, who lived in Shrewsbury and whose family still live in Chatham-Kent, or Cynthia Size, but her family was in a Chatham courtroom just last week when the killer was sentenced. There was no inquest into the femicide of Natalie Novak, who was killed before she had the chance to start her second year at university. But her parents conducted a constructive analysis of Natalie's femicide. Her murder was preventable. Not all femicides are a result of intimate partner violence. Racial femicide and sexual femicide are also very real, and the 14 women we held in remembrance last week didn't even know the man who gunned them down at Ecole Polytechnique on December 6, 1989, for no other reason except they were women. But at this point in time, you have the opportunity to support a simple but incredibly powerful recommendation from the CKW inquest to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic, and I implore you to do so. In closing, I will just share the subtitle from this article that appeared in the London Free Press on July 3rd, 1998, following the Arlene May inquest. Inquest jury makes dozens of proposals to end epidemic of domestic violence. It's beyond time. Please support this motion with thanks to Councillor Alan Story. Thank you. 5 minutes, wow.
And the next speaker is Chatham-Kent Coordinating Committee to End Violence Against Women.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Karen Hunter, the Executive Director of the Chatham-Kent Women's Centre and the co-chair of the Chatham-Kent Coordinating Committee to End Violence Against Women. I am also a survivor of historical intimate partner violence. It's a very difficult subject to talk about. It is absolutely one that we need to talk about. The Chatham-Kent Coordinating Committee to End Violence Against Women is comprised of a cross-section of justice, healthcare, social service partners throughout our community. Our objectives are to facilitate a coordinated system of local community responses, carry out presentations, education, and training in order to raise awareness about gender-based violence and intimate partner violence, to improve access to an integrated service delivery system, and to increase safety of women and children in our community. The Coordinating Committee is here today to invite you to join us in calling for the Government of Ontario to formally declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. This call to action comes from the Culleton, Cusack, and Warmerton inquest held in July 2022 in Pembroke, Ontario, which investigated the circumstances surrounding the deaths of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusack, and Natalie Warmerton, all of whom were killed by the same man on September 22nd, 2015. From this inquest, the jury returned with 86 recommendations, with the very first recommendation being to formally declare intimate partner violence as an epidemic. Other more recent Canadian mass casualties include 5 dead and 1 injured in Vaughan, Ontario in December 2022, 4 dead and 1 injured in Sault Ste. Marie in October 2023. Although mass casualties occur infrequently in our society, intimate partner violence of women and children occur daily in Chatham-Kent. The World Health Organization estimates that globally almost 1 in 3, or 30% of women worldwide, will have been subjected to either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual abuse and violence in their lifetime. As Michelle said, every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. Also in Canada, on any given night, over 6,000 women and children sleep in emergency shelters because it just isn't safe enough to be living at home and sleeping at home. And I can tell you at the Chatham-Kent Women's Centre for the last 6 months, we have been well beyond exceeding exceeding our bed capacity, which is 15 women and children per day. And we have far more than that who need to be in. This past year in Ontario, 46 women, or 1 every 7 days, were victims of femicide. In Chatham-Kent in 2022, Chatham-Kent Victim Services reported assisting 296 domestic assault victims, 148 sexual assault victims, and 47 human trafficking victims, and they expect to surpass those numbers in 2023. The Chatham-Kent Women's Centre reports assisting 112 women and children with emergency shelter services, responded to over 2,000 crisis and support calls, provided 457 women with outreach counseling services, and assisted 15 human trafficking victims. Gender-based and intimate partner violence is an epidemic. No one organization is able to provide solutions to these complex challenges on their own. Through collaboration and shared responsibility between agencies, health, justice, education, and government, local government, we can make an impactful and long-lasting change to a healthier and safer community. Thank you. I'd like to now introduce Liz Downey, who is also a survivor of intimate partner violence and abuse.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Downey. I was your featured artist last month in council chambers. You might have seen my work around Chatham-Kent in like the SOAR Innovation Hub, Rockets Sport Card and Collectibles, Art Space, and of course the Thames Art Gallery. I've been a volunteer with various charities like Heart and Stroke and the United Way. I opened an art studio and welcomed adults and children alike to study art with me, learn how to meditate and self-regulation, as well as self-love. I'm a high school teacher as well. I teach with the Lambton-Kent District School Board. I'm an Ontario certified teacher and have my master's in secondary curriculum and education with a minor in K-12 literacy. I'm bilingual. I've lived in France, I've lived in Quebec, I've lived all over North America. And when I returned to Chatham-Kent in 2009, I could not have guessed where my life was about to lead me. I didn't just go through my CV because I'm looking for work. I'm asking for help. I was listening to CBC a week or so ago, and some startling statistics were shared. When I heard that 3 out of 5 women have experienced intimate partner violence, I wasn't surprised, but it certainly was a sobering stat. And of those numbers, they reported that 20% of women experiencing intimate partner violence will actually ever report the incidents. And I understand why. In small communities like ours, everyone can seem to know everyone, the ins and outs, the business, the past. So when I needed to protect myself and my children from their father and check into the Chatham-Kent Women's Centre, it was an extremely difficult decision to make. It was difficult because he is the COO of a successful legacy business here. His family has lived here for generations and is well known in the community. It was a difficult decision to make because despite the escalating abuse at the time, I didn't want to disrupt the lives of my kids by either uprooting them from their school while we were in hiding or having them transferred temporarily to a new school while we lived there. I was scared to go to the Women's Center because of my clients whose services I would have to cancel while we were in hiding. I was scared to go to the Women's Center because of so many questions that were going to arise. Even simple ones like, will the police support me? Will they support my kids? So yes, I understand why only 20% of women who are being abused go to outside agencies for help. But the other reason they don't go, we don't go, is because of access. I was extremely fortunate, and my son, daughter, and I were able to get a room together within a week of the need at the Chatham-Kent Women's Centre at the time. Since the pandemic hit and the abuse numbers began soaring, getting out of your situation is harder than ever due to lack of access. Half of the world's population is female, and 3 out of 5 women are victimized by an intimate partner in Canada right now. Of course, this isn't limited to just heterosexual relationships. Abuse knows nothing of skin color, religion, economic status, etc. And intimate partner violence will only get worse if we keep pretending that it's not the epidemic that it is. Intimate partner violence thrives in the shadows and behind closed doors. The more light we direct at the very real problem of intimate partner violence and abuse, the more lives we can save and change. My friends need our help if we're ever going to equalize how women are treated in relationships. They're working on making Chatham-Kent a place where getting help is easy, timely, and thorough. We're not here yet, but we're making strides, and I hope that we can count on your support tonight.
Thank you. Council, we'll move on to the consent agenda. So this evening we have 3 reports that are pulled. We have items 20A, advertising in municipal arenas. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Jubenville, and the item has been pulled by Councillor McGrail and Councillor Sakachi. Item 20D, the motion of Councillor Brock McGregor regarding roadways funded by the province has been pulled by Councillor Brock McGregor. And item 21A, council meetings in all wards, has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi. Therefore, the remaining reports remain on the consent agenda to be voted on in one motion. Items 16A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Items 17A, B, C, D, E, F. Items 18A, B, C, D. Item 19A, B, 20B, C, and item 21B.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
All votes are in and motion passes 15-0.
Item 20, infrastructure and engineering services.
20A, advertising in municipal arenas.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes, thank you. Would you like me to move it first?
Yes, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Scott, you're going to put this on the floor anyway to start, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'll put it on the floor as well.
Okay, Councillor McGrail, go ahead.
Thank you. So reading through this report and then having conversations from outside in the community, I was wondering if I could send this back to administration, and then they come back to us with the possibility of bringing this in-house. So then we can keep maybe some of these advertising dollars within Chatham-Kent, but within the clubs too. I'm just looking at, how much it would cost us, and is it feasible to bring it in-house?
Sorry, Councillor McGrail, do you want to put that motion forward first, or do you want to hear some things before you put the motion?
I would like to put that motion forward.
All right. Okay, do we have the wording for that specifically?
So my understanding, now that you've put the recommendation from the report on the floor first, you're asking for a motion to refer back to administration now, correct?
Councillor Scotchy, will you support that?
Yeah, yes, Mayor Kenneth. It was similar to my work. I just kind of wanted to see it first before, but yeah, I support the objective of it as well.
So we're just waiting for it to go up. Councillor McGrail, is there anything else you wanted to say while we're waiting for it to come up on the screen?
Sure. I think the climate in our for our residents and in the arenas is that they'd like to see those dollars kept in Chatham-Kent, and I understand that, and that right now they think it's feasible to get this advertisement on their own. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm just trying to see the numbers and see, is it feasible for this to stay within.
Councillor Scotchy?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'll second it. I just have a couple of questions about the motion. I'll defer to after Councillor McGrail's comments unless she's completed.
Councillor McGrail, do you have anything else?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward what I'm looking for.
Okay, Councillor Scotchy?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'll keep my comments very brief. I do think that this is something that I would like to see at least considered, but I do recognize that staff might see some significant challenges when it comes to the different climates in each arena and the different abilities. So I guess I just don't want to see a report with what it would cost, but I would also like to see recommendations if it's even feasible, because I understand through you, Mr. Pollock, that there is a lot of different avenues to go through when it comes to these, different arenas, different user groups, all those types of things. So I do support looking at it. I think that Mr. Dubin has done a great job at, standardize some different departments, now having kind of a communication lead as well. So that's something that we can look at. But I do not just want to see the cost, but comparables, if that's something that's still okay with the motion that's up, Mr. Pollock, or do you need more direction?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rob Pollock, Director of Parks, Fleet and Facilities. The only direction that from the motion how it's written and from the councillor that gave the motion, so it's to bring the service in-house, but when I was listening to the councillor, she was also talking about other users that might be interested. So if it was just to clarify what she was meaning by that, I think other than that, I could bring something back.
Maybe if I can just to add, so the discussion isn't real long, I guess to bring the cost and feasibility to bring the service in-house. That way we look at like the metrics of if it's even feasible, cost feasible, and how much moving parts there would be, because I'm guessing every single arena is going to be a little bit different in who we look at, and we obviously have to find some synergies. So I understand the whole the 2-year aspect in the report, but 2 years is a long time as well, right? So, Mr. Dubin, maybe it looks like you have a comment potentially.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Pollack's point is that bringing the service in-house means we would look at whether or not we would essentially do the marketing part of the advertising in-house, meaning it would probably be somebody in corporate communications who would do it. But I think Mr. Pollack's point is that comments didn't seem to limit the analysis that you want to that, but you also perhaps want us to look at whether or not in a particular arena there's an opportunity for the users to do it. So I would suggest that, with all due respect to the two movers here, that it shouldn't just be on what this would cost to bring this service in-house. You probably need to say if there's a possibility of the user groups playing a role, something like that. Then we can look at it from both angles. As the way it's worded right now, we would just tell you whether or not we could do it, but I think you want more than that. So,
Councilor McGrail, you good with that?
I'm absolutely good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so we can put that in there.
Thank you.
Just from a timing perspective, Mr. Pollack, since we have quite a bit of time so far, this isn't going to put you in a challenging situation from the current landscape?
So if it is sent back, the agreement that we have currently with Boardview ends at the end of the year, but it extends to the end of the ice season. So that's the end of March 2024. So if it gets sent back, then we wouldn't have a current agreement in place starting January 1st with their the sales that they've already done. It extends to the end of the ice season. So if you send it back, we wouldn't actually be in agreement for anyone to actually operate for the advertisements during this time. So no one would be actually selling any from January until we had a report back with what we were going to go forward with. So
what's that time frame look like? 2-3 months?
Just for clarification, are you asking to bring a report back to provide in service? I would have to refer back to, because if we're talking about another department, I would have to confer with them on a timeline on when we could come back with those figures, but
yeah, to the mayor, to the councillor, if I can maybe jump in. Given the extent of what you're looking at, I don't realistically see us coming back to you till about April. So we would be losing revenue for the last 3 months of the existing contract.
That changes a lot. I guess it's unfortunate because this conversation has been ongoing for about 5 years. But I mean, I also don't want to impact the revenue that we're seeing that we're probably already budgeted for. So that changes my whole process on it.
Councilor McGrail, I'll come back to you in a minute. I just want to make a comment about this as well. Just I'm assuming a lot of it's already sold. That you're not selling a lot between. So they would have started in September their advertising versus saying, oh geez, I want advertising on the board starting January.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, most of them would have been sold already for the entire season, but a lot of times they're selling for the next season. So that yes, a lot of them would already be sold for this current season.
So to clarify that, if we came out April and got moving, we would still have time to get all the marketing, because most of the marketing targets are obviously for September when the arenas are open, not when they're closed.
Yes,
so
that is correct.
So if that helps clarify just the revenue side of things, and I like the concept of working with the users of the arenas to see what we can work out. And I realize that there's 10 different arenas out there. There's 10 groups of different users. So that's why a number of years ago we didn't do this, because it was very complicated. But I think the concept here is, can we keep that the fees that we're paying out of town, put those in the hands of the user groups, and to say, are those user groups more capable of selling advertising locally than a company from outside? So that's, I think, Councilor McGrail, what you're looking at exploring. And I'll pass it to you for final words. I don't see any other questions.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Absolutely. And my question was, how much revenue would we be losing out on? So you've already answered that. So absolutely, it's just bringing it in-house and bringing it into our community. And that's what I'd like to explore.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put that to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Councillor Doyle,
Councillor Doyle, are you there?
Okay,
Okay,
Councillor.
Councillor Allen?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Allen?
Sorry. Yes.
All votes are in and motion passes 15-1. 20D, motion of Councillor Brock McGregor regarding roadways funded by the province.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'll read the motion quickly. It's pretty short. Whereas recently it was announced that the Gardner Expressway and Don Valley Parkway will be uploaded from the City of Toronto to the Province of Ontario, therefore be it resolved that Chatham-Kent Council direct administration to identify roadways previously funded by the province and draft a letter requesting similar treatment, including an uploading of said identified roadways to the province.
Councillor Thompson.
I would second that.
And just a very quick explanation. I don't contend that this is a totality of a strategy to relate to the province. I'm aware that it will probably very quickly be glanced at and perhaps disposed of. So I hope that there will not be a great deal of staff time required in drafting what should be a fairly short letter. But I do think it's helpful that the community and even members around this table recognize the impact of previous downloads. I know for many of us, we were quite young in 1998 when some of those downloads occurred, and the outcome in infrastructure deficit that we face resulting from that and the added expense to taxpayers in Chatham-Kent is pretty profound. And with recent actions by the provincial government, I think there's some opportunity for municipalities to be a little louder in their call for new revenue tools and new revenue sharing to face some of those challenges. So I anticipate that in the future there's a lot more work to do in this file and with other communities with AMO. But I do think that this is just a quick exercise in highlighting and reinforcing what's going on in Ontario right now.
Councillor Crew.
Did you need a seconder? Is that what you're looking?
We've already got a seconder.
Oh, sorry, missed it. That's all.
Councillor B. McGregor, may I suggest a little addition to that, just saying something along the lines that, because we're looking to say do the equivalent roads, but maybe there's another option that's another financial way of doing it other than roads. But yeah, if there is that other option when we see it, are you open to having not just road suggestions, but other suggestions that would be equivalent?
Sure, and I think in the letter we could maybe highlight that we're interested in any other revenue opportunities to make up.
Do you want to make a change, or Michael, is that good? You get the idea of other things as well?
Yeah, I don't think we need any further direction. We'll mention other revenue opportunities in the letter.
Okay.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, I will say that I agree with Councillor McGregor's sort of prediction of what will happen to it. But I do think down the road that the impact of long-term improvements to Talbot Trail in this community is significant, and financially may be even more significant than some of the roads that were uploaded. So I think down the road we probably need to develop some sort of an advocacy approach to having some discussions about Talbot Trail, because it's just such a big issue. And I would argue that yes, while there are probably some other roads in Ontario that have provincial roads that have since been downloaded to municipalities, I suspect there are very few that attract this kind of expense. So it's something we need to think about, and maybe this is a stepping stone to that. So
let's upload it back.
Seeing no other questions, we'll vote to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 21, corporate services.
21A, council meetings in all wards.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Doyle, can I get you put on the floor, please?
Happy to put it on the floor, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. First and foremost, I do want to recognize, I know that this is something that was brought forward in the past. by yourself to ensure that we're doing our best to have a, inclusive community with all the neighbors as one in Chatham-Kent. But just going over the report, I just feel that from a cost perspective and time perspective, I won't be supporting the motion, the recommendations that are included in the report. I think that it's challenging. We're looking at some of the, for instance, Spring, Blenheim Ward 2. There's a good possibility that, when the clerk, the clerks and the municipal staff produce the agenda, there's the possibility that there might not even be a Ward 2 matter on the agenda. And I think that since we've made significant changes on our online participation, with how we can participate, how the public can participate, I would much rather have some money, set aside that we're saving from these meetings, that if there is a contentious or a challenging issue in that community, that we can have an open house or a PIC in that community, and those costs can be absorbed by, the costs we're saving from actually doing, the actual different wards. So I want to recognize that there is a lot of challenges going off-site, and I think that, every member of council in the last 5 years has done a very good job at trying to advocate as an inclusive municipality, including yourself, getting to all the areas on a very regular basis. And I just think from the cost perspective, it's just not something that meets my optical vision. And to be honest with you, I haven't really heard from one constituent that says this is a good way to spend money. I'm not saying that's a bad way, but I'm just saying that from my perspective, I just won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just have to ask this. Not 2 weeks ago, during budget, we were told, don't touch reserves because you got to put it back. And here we are, 2 weeks later, taking $23,000, which is not $10 million, obviously, from reserves. So does that have to go back? Does that have a budget impact next year? Question number one. And number two, if we saw this coming, why wouldn't this be part of our budget discussions? We're only 2 weeks out. To just add the 23 into our budget, then we wouldn't be taking from reserves. So question number one, why are we taking it from reserves when that's such a terrible idea? And number two, why wouldn't this have been part of our, budget deliberations where we decide to spend all the money 2 weeks ago? And I don't know where that goes, Gord.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a one-time item throughout this term of council, and then was going to be decided upon whether it would. Am I right, Judy? That this was then to be decided on whether it would be repeated next term of council. So it never was a base budget ask. It was. There was a notice of motion to come back with a report with what the cost would be, and that's what this is with a recommendation of $23,000 coming from strategic reserves on a one-time basis.
Thank you, Mayor Kemp. But don't we, at budget, don't we do one-offs too? Like, not everything goes into base, right?
Correct. There were one-time items in the budget. I think it was just, the budget's been in development since June. This request did not come up through Judy. I don't know, Judy, if you have any comments on the timing.
Oh, it's okay. I just felt obligated to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a notice of motion received from the mayor a couple months ago, and so we would have already had our budget drafted and going through the processes. So this was something that was put forward at the last term of council, and then COVID happened, and now the mayor had brought it forward, and this was the request for a report with the information. So that's what we're providing to you now.
No, I knew there was a good answer. Thank you.
I'll just add a couple of comments in here as well. Just a very brief history. Back in 2000, the beginning of the last term, brought together a motion and council approved to do a council meeting in each of the wards back between 2018 and 2022. We all know what happened in between. We did one meeting in Tilbury and then we put a stop to it with COVID. So I felt obligated to bring it back again, given that we didn't finish that mandate. However, I look a few points. I mean, there's logistics to it. Certainly the cost. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's a cost of $23,000. Bottom line, we have to look at, is there a benefit to it? Is there a benefit to the communities outside of Chatham that would say, you know what, I'm glad that we came to these communities or not. So I will leave it to council to decide on that. I mean, I'm not married to either side of it. I wanted to bring it up just for a quick discussion and let councillors decide, say, is it important for you to have a meeting in your ward? And that's kind of where we're at with that. So, Councillor Harrigan?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just thought from your comments I would make a very brief comment around the experience of the meeting that was hosted in Tilbury, because certainly I was the serving councillor last term, and Councillor Roche is no longer serving as councillor, but there were actually, well, the handful of people who did come to the meeting appreciated that it was at the Tilbury Arena and not a meeting in Chatham, and they wanted to see what a councillor meeting was like. There were more stakeholders. We were discussing infrastructure, so there were more stakeholders actually from the KFA or from other stakeholder groups that had come to Tilbury to see the discussion. And I would fully echo the comment that Councillor Sakachi had made, where some people said, well, we thought we were going to have a Tilbury meeting in Tilbury. We didn't know you were going to talk about all of the other things that are on the agenda. And so while I do think that this was potentially a really good initiative to try and see, the general consensus from specifically the people in Tilbury who attended that one meeting that we did get to have was that maybe it would be better if we just did more to promote and advertise those public engagement sessions that took place around issues in our own backyard. And certainly over the last couple of years, I have seen much increase in the amount of social media presence and engagement around issues in the backyards across Chatham-Kent. So.
Thank you. Just to add, I haven't received a single comment about it one way or the other as well, so that it's not a hot agenda item out there. So with that, I don't see any other questions. We'll put it to vote.
Councillor McGrail?
Yes.
And Councillor Allen?
No.
And Councillor Doyle?
No.
So, we got to do math again. Motion fails 6-11.
We will move into notice of motion. Councillor Crew, then Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Bear with me, this is long. What is that notification noise? It's annoying. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was. All right. I, Councillor Crew, provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion January 15th, 2023 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas it's recognized that youth baseball registration numbers in Chatham continue to rise, requiring additional baseball diamonds in the city of Chatham, and whereas that there is only one regulation-sized baseball diamond capable of hosting events for players 14 years of age and older in a city as large as Chatham. Whereas it's recognized that there are additional teams and leagues formed in recent years in the city of Chatham, and that there is an increasing demand for regulation-sized baseball diamond usage as a result. Whereas it's recognized that the arrival of the Intercounty baseball team in 2024 will reduce the field availability of Fergie Jenkins Park for the youth of Chatham Minor Baseball Association and the additional teams and leagues that have formed. And whereas there currently exist field availability and accessibility challenges for challenger baseball programs for those players with cognitive or physical disabilities, necessitating the exploration of a fully accessible playing surface for those players. And whereas Chatham Sports Hall of Fame and Chatham Minor Baseball Association recognize this need and have formed the Chatham-Kent Community Field of Dreams Committee to work towards construction of a second regulation-sized baseball diamond within the city limits of Chatham, but available to all communities in Chatham-Kent to use. Whereas these two community groups have a well-established presence in the community and have proven to develop much-needed community assets together for the benefit of all citizens across Chatham-Kent. And whereas this newly formed committee is committed to fundraising the capital required to build such a facility, and whereas this project supports Chatham-Kent Council's priorities under community safety and well-being, be it resolved that administration work to explore and assist the CK Community Field of Dreams Committee with the planning, feasibility, and potential location of the project and return to council by May 2024 with recommendations in consultation with the committee. Thank you. Whew, I'm going to pass out.
Councillor Story?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We'll see who has the longer motion tonight, Marjorie. Oh, really? You timed it? Oh, great. I, Councillor Story, will be making the following motion for the January 15th, 2024 meeting. Whereas substantial investment from the taxpayer will soon be required for multiple critical large-scale investments across Chatham-Kent, including but not limited to replacement and repair of water and wastewater infrastructure, stormwater systems, the fire master plan, addressing homelessness, emergency supportive and deeply affordable housing, and more. Whereas it is not clear if immediate federal or provincial funding is coming to Chatham-Kent for most or any of these critical must-do projects, and the municipality may need to pay for these projects on our own. Whereas it is not clear if immediate or significant federal or provincial funding will support projects that are not considered critical infrastructure needs, like moving 3 municipal taxpayer-owned public buildings several hundred meters in downtown Chatham to the old Sears building, or selling public buildings that are not at end of life, and therefore the municipality may need to pay for these projects also entirely on our own. Whereas there are funding opportunities for retrofitting and renovating existing buildings to improve and increase energy efficiency and extend the life of these buildings that could apply to our municipal facilities in down Chatham. Whereas skyrocketing costs in food, housing, and other daily necessities, food bank usage increasing substantially along with multi-year wait lists for affordable housing are some of the major indicators showing how many people in our community are struggling to make ends meet. Whereas adding municipal projects that are not critical needs and appear to have significant costs could add unnecessary financial burden to Chatham-Kent residents during this time of economic uncertainty. Whereas downtown Chatham business owners are also asking for help in assisting with vulnerable people, and there are organizations in this community and across the province who can help us meet this need and contribute to downtown Chatham revitalization. Whereas there is currently no financial information available about increased ongoing operational costs for the Chatham-Kent Museum, the Chatham-Kent Library, or the Chatham-Kent Civic Center if moved to the old Sears location, and these increased operational costs have not yet been budgeted for. Whereas Council was elected to ensure financial transparency and accountability to the public in all decisions. Be it resolved that before any tenders are prepared, administration prepare a report to Council in open session, including the following financial and site information. Full operating and capital costs of the old Sears site, including construction costs. All municipal funding sources required to pay for either option, moving to the old Sears site or fixing what we already own, and all tax impacts to residents. Before final approval of the purchase of the old Sears building, a full building condition report be included in the report to Council. This condition report should have at least equal amount of detail and costing as the existing reports on the Civic Center, Library, and Chatham-Kent Museum. If the municipality moves ahead with the purchasing of the old Sears building, a steering committee is established to provide feedback and input, including staff from relevant departments and relevant stakeholders. If the municipality moves ahead with purchasing the old Sears building, what control over its use the existing owner would retain in the purchase and sale agreement is made clear. If the municipality moves ahead with purchasing the old Sears building, agreements related to parking will be clearer, and whether municipal staff, library, museum users, volunteers, and visitors to City Hall will have to pay for parking to use these facilities. Regular updates in open session of Council on costs incurred, including approximate cost of staff time. Administration prepare a full accounting of potential impacts of this proposal on the operations of taxpayer-owned buildings and communities outside of Chatham. And any costs related to the items listed above come out of the $2 million fund approved by the previous council. Thank you.
The closed session reports, Councillor Crew, and then Councillor Harrigan to second those.
Thank you. Council directed administration on litigation, including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on by the municipality regarding development charges appeals, Section 239(2) F, and K of the Municipal Act 2001. I so move.
And I second.
Any questions? Put it to vote.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor McGrail?
Yes.
Counselor Allen?
Yes.
And Counselor Sakachi. All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0.
Approval of communication items, Counselor Anderson, Counselor Wright, can I get you to move those?
I'm happy to move.
I'll second it, thank you.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Non-agenda business. Counselor Pinsino, Counselor Story, Counselor Crew.
Thames would like to welcome everybody this Friday to their Santa Claus parade. It's a night parade.
Counselor Story, followed by Counselor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to mention, between our last meetings, what we call a giant in Ontario and local politics passed away, Mr. Darcy McHugh, who was a Chatham alderman for the former city of Chatham and also an MPP in the Ontario legislature for 15 years, from 1963 to 78. He was considered the minister of everything at one point. He was the minister of the Treasury, economics, intergovernmental affairs, and municipal affairs all at the same time, which seems amazing to me now. But in the Premier Bill Davis's ministry, he was certainly a giant of the legislature, and so sending our sympathies to his family and colleagues. Thank you.
Counselor Crew, followed by Counselor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. On behalf of Eastside Pride, I want to thank everyone who came out on Saturday, yourself included. Police, fire. Councillor Sokachi is now an honorary member. He is a cook in the kitchen. Councillor Story was serving. Mayor Caniff was serving. And it was over 350 to 400 people came out to have breakfast, and that was from all walks of life. Everyone gets together and visits with Santa and eats breakfast, and it was a really good turnout. We were pleased because we were worried, getting back after COVID, we didn't know what the response would be. So it was really good, and we really appreciate and thank our volunteers, and Councillor Sakachi has war wounds to prove it.
Counselor Sakachi.
Really briefly, just wanted to say that Blenheim has a fantastic light show in Blenheim from 6, 7, and 8 o'clock at night where you can turn into your radio. It's at Talbot Trail Place, and I think the committee and the organizers did a fantastic job. It truly looked like a Hallmark movie last week. So,
Counselor Finn.
Thank you, Your Worship. In addition to the Eastside Pride Breakfast with Santa, I'd like to thank everybody who took time to make, I think it was 40 kids this year for Holiday with a Hero. It's not an easy task, but it is a fun task, and you put smiles on 40 kids' faces.
I'll just do this in non-agenda business. I want to wish everybody a fantastic holiday. We went through 2023, and as I look back and when I think about non-agenda business, and we talk about so many amazing events that happen in Chatham-Kent, virtually all driven by volunteers. And that's what makes our community so amazing. So literally the thousands of people in Chatham-Kent that stepped up over the year to make all those events happen, to do wonderful things, to help people, help their neighbors. I want to thank each and every one of them for what they've done. And Chatham-Kent's one of the most amazing places on earth to live, and they're the reason why, the people here of Chatham-Kent. So I want to thank everyone for that. With that, we'll go into the first and second reading. Councillor Pinsino and Councillor Bondi.
So moved, Your Worship.
And so seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor B. McGregor, Councillor Hall. Third and final reading.
So moved.
So seconded. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Crew, can I get you to do the resolution of council? And Councillor McGrail, if you can wrap it up, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held Monday, January 15th, 2024, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
And I second.
It's a wrap at 7:44. Thanks, everybody.